Fathers of Reddit. In honor of Father's Day, what was your "don't tell your mother about this" moment? Not a father, but I have a wholesome story of my own dad. I was born very early, at only 4 pounds. On top of that, or possibly as a result, I have a fragile immune system, especially so when I was young, and up until a few years ago, I got seriously sick, fever, vomiting, sore throat, the whole shebang, 5 times or more a year. I would become so dehydrated from vomiting or get such a high fever that at times, I had to be brought into the emergency room. As a result, I drank exclusively Pedialyte to counter that when sick, and I developed a serious distaste and hate for the stuff. My dad was responsible for bathing me one night to help me cool down. I must have been 6 or 7 at the oldest. We were on a vacation, and even as an adult, I always get really sick during or after traveling, and I had inconveniently gotten sick while we were staying in a hotel. I'd had a high fever, and my body was so sore and tired I'd slept for 24 hours, no one could wake me up, and I hadn't drank anything in that time. So my dad put in front of me a very big glass of Pedialyte and told me I had to finish the whole thing while I sat in the bath. I took it as obediently as I could, but a fourth of the way in, I just felt so miserable and mad that I started sobbing. My dad had this heartbreaking look on his face, and stroked my hair, near tears himself. It was late, and we were tired, so he wrapped me up in a towel, and put me in bed with he and Mom. My dad drinks a lot of Mountain Dew, and he told me that for every 3 sips of Pedialyte I get down, I can have a sip of soda to help wash out the bad taste, but don't tell Mom. I never did, and it's one of my favorite memories of me and my dad. My dad has passed away, so I'll tell this on his behalf. My sister was maybe 10 or 11. My dad was very worried and had been waiting all day for us to come home from school. When we got home, he pulled her aside saying he needed to have a serious talk with her. He said to her, "I was looking for a pencil, and found this in your desk," and pulled out a plastic baggie filled with some dried plant material. She said, "Oh, catnip?" He thought it was pot. We would make little cat toys with catnip, and the bag had ripped, so she put it in a Ziploc bag. He sighed a huge sigh of relief and laughed and told her he thought she was doing drugs and asked her not to tell our mom. He was so embarrassed. Hey, in fairness to him, if you're worried, it's better to communicate openly about it than it is to sit and stew on it. By addressing the concern directly, he got to know there's nothing to worry about, and all it cost him was a bit of dignity. Saying this in honor of my dad, as he is very old and does not read it. He once cut the end of my toe off as a baby, cutting my sharp baby nails, and my screaming brought in my brother. He joined forces to get me all bandaged up and told my mother I'd banged it into a wall or trapped it in a door or something. My mum found out, and by extension so did I, when I was 10. A wholesome one. For my mom's 50th birthday he bought her a set of vintage diamond and pearl earrings and a necklace. I helped him choose them out. I'm never allowed to tell her just how much they cost. How much did they cost? Nice try, Mom. This last Christmas my 4-year-old helped my wife wrap one of my gifts. It was late, so I was working. The next day, while my wife was at work, she came running through from her bedroom first thing and yelled excitedly, "Daddy! Daddy! I helped wrap your gift. It's a surprise. It's a slushie maker." "Honey, that's awesome, but you aren't supposed to tell me that." I know, but it's a slushie maker." "If you know not to tell me, then why did you tell me?" "Because I'm just so excited to make slushies with you." I was crying with laughter at this point and told her that it's an awesome gift, but to keep gifts secret, and I told her we wouldn't tell Mummy so she wouldn't be disappointed that I knew what it was. I ended up telling her that evening because it was just too funny and cute. My little cousin was wrapping a Christmas present for her dad with her mum. It was a watch. She asked if it was a surprise and her mum said yes. So she saw her dad later and she said, "Daddy, we got you a present, it's not a watch." I guess to her that was the best form of misdirection she could think of. Dad and I used to rent a movie each week for when Mum had dinner with friends. Usually things like Star Trek or action films. One day, I was about 11, he came home with Blade. We got about 10 minutes in and he turns to me and said, "Don't tell your mother about this, let's just say I forgot to get it this week." Of course I agree. Fast forward 7-ish years, Dad blithely drops at the dinner table the fact that we watched Blade when I was about 11. Silly Dad thought there was some kind of statute of limitations on this. For my dad and I, it was cop movies like Last Boy Scout, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, etc. At the time, my mom lost her shit when she found out I was fond of those kind of TV movies, cause I'd already seen the theatrical versions LMAO. My dad, brother, and I went out to these dunes near where I live with bottle rockets. We each had an empty milk jug and each took like 20 bottle rockets for ammo. Then, we ran around launching bottle rockets at each other. I was the youngest, which made me the hardest to hit, so I won the rocket war. But yeah, Mom never found out. Your hitbox needed to be nerfed. In my second year of college, my best friend committed suicide. We were all pretty heartbroken, so my mom and dad drove up from the next province to be with me. My dad, being a great cook, decided he would cook my roommates/friends and I a nice dinner to bring everyone together during the bleak moment. My dad and I ended up getting completely shit-faced, as one tends to do during heartbreaking times. He got embarrassed at his drunken state and snuck out the back door and jumped in a cab without saying goodbye. I was upset he disappeared like that, but he also still had the car keys I needed so I could drive my friends and I to the funeral the next day. I called him and asked him to get out of the cab, and that I would meet him at whatever street corner he was at, which he did. When I found him, he was sitting in the stoop of an apartment building puking and crying. I rolled up and together we staggered home drunk and crying arm in arm. When we got back to my apartment, he was still embarrassed, so he asked to sleep in the car. I said okay, grabbed him a blanket, Pringles and a Gatorade for midnight munchies. I go back inside and no sooner did I sit down did I get a text from him saying he was cold and wanted to come in. I went and got him from the car and he was covered in Pringle crumbs. Like. Covered. I dragged him up the sketchy spiral staircase to my apartment and the last thing he said before he went inside and to bed was, "God, your stairs are like fucking Hogwarts, man. Please don't tell your mother." And he passed out. It was the moment I saw my dad as a real person, not just my father. I think a lot of fathers try to be strong and stoic for their kids during hard times, in an attempt to be stable for us. Sharing this heartbreaking moment with him just brought us closer together. I love my dad. Man cooks a mean bavette steak. Good man, good man. Daughter speaking for her father. In high school, everybody was always busy at work or clubs, so I was the first one in my household to get home nearly every single day. Dad was having money troubles that he didn't want to disclose to anyone, so he paid me $5 a month to take the bank statement letter from the mailbox and hide it from my stepmom until he got home. It was the closest thing I got to an allowance. P.S. I had no idea what the money trouble was, by the way. I was always the don't ask, don't tell person, so that's why he trusted me the most about this. Clearly all this bribery was causing him money problems. He's bribing everyone in town to pretend he doesn't have money problems. Each time he bribes one person, more people find out, and he has to bribe them too. He's like a one-man pyramid scheme. I call it a Ramesses. Not a father, but a story about mine. One day I decided to pull a sick day at school and came downstairs and saw that my dad was making a coffee. I asked him what he was doing and why he wasn't at work, and he said I could ask you the same question. We stood in silence for a moment and he said, "I won't tell your mom if you won't." We had a good laugh about it and he let me have the day off. I had this moment with my sister not long ago. We both go to the same school and both had the idea to pull a sick day on the same day. I took the back way home, she took the normal way, both of us walked in the front/back doors at the same time, walked into the kitchen, and well, this meme sums it up. I pulled a big bro move and signed her note for the next day so parents wouldn't find out. Perks of being 18. Edit, feel like I should add that I was in 12th grade and she was in 9th. We figured out that she had left 10 minutes earlier than I had, and that somehow resulted in near perfect timing. One night when I was about 8, after I had gone to bed, my dad was playing a Nintendo game, Legend of Zelda I think. We had both been playing it but we were stuck. He finally found a secret passage, paused the game, and came upstairs to wake me up. He told me he figured out where we were stuck, snuck me downstairs in a blanket. I'm sure my mom knew, and I got to stay up after midnight on a school night, hiding under a blanket, to see where the hidden passage went. It was a silly little incident, but very memorable. Edit, wow. It's one of those blew up overnight situations. Thank you all for the awards and sharing your own versions of the story. I'm glad this warmed so many hearts. Edit 2, don't read if you don't want the feels ruined. A few asked about my relationship with my dad. We actually weren't that close, and still aren't, because reasons. But this story stands out in my memory not just because it was awesome and wholesome, because it wasn't like him. Edit 3, as to the specifics of the game/secret passage, after some Googling, I can't find a Zelda-related secret that matches my memory. I recall a path that is going east then turns south. To the right there's an ocean, and if you just keep going east instead of turning south, there's a hidden path where you can walk over the ocean. We played several similar games with that old top-down view. Could have been Dragon Warrior, 8 Eyes, or so many others. Maybe someone on here can figure it out. Edit 4, thanks to the hive mind for figuring out it was Zelda 2, when you get the water boots and can walk over the water to get to the ocean palace. It's great to fill in the gaps of a nice childhood memory. This is so sweet, I can't stop smiling at the imagery you've given me. This is so cool, I love this.